Things have gone from bad to worse for this Philadelphia Phillies team rather quickly. They now have dropped 3 straight games, including back-to-back at the hands of the New York Mets, and Cristopher Sanchez has popped up a little injury on his throwing arm. Doing a breakdown exactly what is going on, as well as Ranger Suarez potentially returning and Weston Wilson taking his place back on this Phillies team. I want to dive into the latest of some moving parts going on with this Phillies team, but do got to lead with the unfortunate news of Cristopher Sanchez. So he was on the mound for the last night's matchup against the New York Mets. Thought he looked pretty good in the first inning. Fine, maybe not good is a little strong, but then the second inning is where things started to unravel. And the most notable part is his velocity was not there. One of the positive storylines or exciting things from my perspective has been the increased velocity of Cristopher Sanchez to start this season. Hitting 96, hitting 97. That was not the case yesterday. Thrown about 94, and ultimately in the second inning, he was forced to leave due to what has been labeled some forearm soreness. Now, what do we have so far is Rob Thomson said post-game that Cristopher Sanchez saw the doctor and they're not expecting any structural damage to his forearm. It's only tightness. The Phillies will reevaluate Sanchez over the next few days. And to add a little bit more to that report, Cristopher Sanchez said based on the initial exams, he's confident his forearm soreness isn't serious, although he said he's never experienced anything like that in a game before. Rob Thomson said they will rework the rotation next week to give Sanchez extra rest. We will know more on Wednesday. So today, at the time of recording this here, ultimately not too much that we can say at this current point, but not a great sign whatsoever. And I will say, to put on the worst case scenario here, there are correlations to forearm issues and Tommy John surgery there. I'm not saying we're there yet, and certainly hope that is not the case, but it is a concern when you have a rising star of a pitcher, a young talent with his arm, having issues like this pop up. And to be blunt here, the Phillies need Cristopher Sanchez. That this is no longer just a good story that is awesome to watch this guy's development. He's become a guy that they're counting on to deliver all season, so certainly hope this is nothing that is a long-term issue. Now, with that being said, you do have to find a way to fix this, and the obvious solution in my mind is Ranger Suarez taking his place back in the rotation here. Now, Ranger is in the midst of his rehab assignments here. He did pitch last night as well, pitched 5 scoreless innings in AAA for Lehigh Valley. On 5 innings pitched, 2 hits, 0 earned runs, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts, and 59 pitches. I did take a peek at the highlights, did not watch the game in itself. He looked like Ranger Suarez to me, the way that he carried himself, the way the ball was moving. I was excited with what I've seen. Now, one interesting part to note here is he was initially scheduled to throw 75 pitches or 6 innings there. He was pulled after 5 and 59 pitches, which is a little bit strange to me, and even a little bit more significant, I would say, is he was scheduled to speak to the media after the game, and that was ultimately shut down. Now, we can look at this 2 different ways. The worst case scenario in this direction is obviously if the injury issues flared up once again. There also is a world where the Phillies got word of, or Ranger Suarez, I guess Lehigh Valley got word of what was going on with Cristopher Sanchez, and they said, all right, we might need to fast track things a little bit. Let's not push this guy. I don't know what the outcome is here. I think we'll probably know more at the end of today, and we'll be hopping back on for an update whenever that is the case there. And it's also surprising to me, or not surprising, unfortunate in my mind, is I was starting to talk myself really into Ranger Suarez joining this Phillies team as a key part of the bullpen. And we've talked so much about the bullpen being an issue for this Phillies team. And to put it out there for what the ERA is looking at for each of these guys, just about nobody has been good enough. Matt Strahm, a 1.74 ERA, shout out to him. Jose Alvarado, 2.53 ERA, and has been really solid to start the year. Tanner Banks, 3.38, and frankly, the fact that Tanner Banks is the 3rd best ERA in the bullpen, I think, is a bit concerning in itself. But Joe Ross, 5.68. Orion Kirkring, 6.48. Jose Ruiz, 6.75. Carlos Hernandez, 7.89. And Jordan Romano, 13.50. All those guys got to be better, and that's why I was starting to believe in Ranger Suarez having a place in that. Delayed out. We've seen Ranger pitch out of the bullpen setting before. His splits as a starter from an ERA perspective. He's got a 3.52 ERA as a starter, a 2.91 as a reliever. I do think Ranger is the unique baseball player or unique pitcher that does not matter what the situation is. He's going to go out there and deal, do Ranger Suarez things, throw his stuff, and get results regardless of what the circumstances are. And we've seen this. He's proven this in a Phillies uniform. This is the same guy that has recorded final outs to send this team to the World Series. Also the same guy that has been a lockstep part of the starting rotation for several seasons now. So ultimately, just the positive that we should be looking at is that Ranger is potentially returning to this Phillies team soon. We will see what the ultimate timeline for Cristopher Sanchez is moving forward, but I do think that they're going to need both these guys pretty significantly this year, particularly for how things are going. And by the way, as I come down on all these guys, it was a pretty solid bullpen outing last night. Jordan Romano and Joe Ross showing me a little bit of something there. I'm not, taking great pleasure in getting through a game that they were already losing, and obviously the bats are a problem too. That everything that could go wrong seemingly is going wrong with this Phillies team. Every facet of the game has been underwhelming at best, and disappointing is a fair assessment. And the bats is kind of a weird issue to me. I feel like for years we've talked about like this is an all or nothing lineup, that we have these guys that want to mash home runs, and it works when they're hitting things out of the park and doesn't when that's not the case. All of a sudden, I kind of feel like this lineup lacks pop. Like, there's none of these guys that have that explosive. It feels like a group of slap hitters, and I know that is not fair to the Kyle Schwarbers, the Nick Castellanos, the Bryce Harpers, but that's kind of where the list ends for me as far as the guys that I think strike fear into opposing pitchers' hearts for belief that the ball will go right back over that wall there. Now, I'm not saying this guy is here to save the season, but I am excited that Weston Wilson will provide a little something to this Phillies team, because we did get the official update today that Phillies activate infield outfielder Weston Wilson from the 10-day injured list. Cody Clemens has been DFA'd as a result. Now, we didn't see a lot of Cody Clemens, pretty much zero of them, to be honest. I think he had like 3 at-bats, something along those lines there. So I don't know exactly where Weston Wilson slots in here. What he has in his favor, for starters, he's a right-handed bat and a guy that I do think will get opportunities pretty much purely based on that. He's also very flexible where he can play on the field. We've seen him play some infield, some third base, some corner outfield spots, and I do think like these are all increase the chances of him having opportunities. And I do think Rob Thomson likes Weston Wilson. Like, just kind of listening to some of the quotes, the way that he talks about him, I think he'll get more opportunities than what we saw with Cody Clemens, but it's still, you're going to have to earn those, and it's going to be a bit limited at this point in time. But nonetheless, I do think it is a positive story that he is back in the majors. He is back with this Phillies team, and I would like to see him in action. That it's very clear to me this Phillies team needs a spark. Now, that is a problem in itself, and you shouldn't really be counting on guys who, with all due respect to Weston Wilson, these fringe type MLB guys as, your motivation, your spark point, the thing to set you guys in order. You should be able to count on your stars to lead that charge in that regard, but we're seeing sort of the lack of urgency with this Phillies team. It's very early in the season. I'm not in panic mode with this team, but it's really frustrating. This is what it looks like to me, is this was a team that fell completely lost their way in the second half of the season. They did not have that fire in their gut, that motivation, that spark, that fun-loving approach that we've kind of grown to really love about this Phillies team, and it just kind of limped to the finish line. Feels like they picked up in the exact same spot. And even if I want to compare it to last year again, there was a clear focus coming out of the gates at the start of last season. That they heard the noise about not starting well and how they had to kind of sneak their way into the playoffs here. That is not all the case this year. It just feels kind of like we'll get there when we get there. We'll win the games when we can win the games. And, we're going to lose a bunch in the process. There does not feel this urgency within this Phillies team. And the fact that this is a team with legitimate World Series aspirations, having this kind of outlook and approach this early in the season is a problem here. And by the way, for the guys at the plate who, even while I talk all about pitching in this videos, the starting pitching outlook, the bullpen, the bats simply are not doing their job here. And I do think the plate approach has regressed for a lot of these guys. Nick Castellanos, who have been incredibly complimentary on throughout the entire start of the season, he looks back in a lot of his old habits, swinging to the down on the way slider, chasing out the strike zone. All these guys, it's just maddening right now. So really rough times in the world of the Phillies at this current point. It is a marathon, so we got to keep sticking along until the very end at this point. Hopefully Weston Wilson can provide a little bit of a positive start and a positive spark, and hopefully that the injury to Cristopher Sanchez is nothing too notable. But nonetheless, we're going to keep plugging through right here on Phillies Digest. That is kind of where we're at right now. We'll be back providing a full update on Cristopher Sanchez once we have any sort of timeline, or if Rob Thomson speaks directly on it. But obviously not a good thing to see him being chased after less than 2 innings last night, and do hope all is okay from a physical standpoint there. Appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with us here on Phillies Digest. If you have not already, make sure you are smashing that subscribe button. It helps us out a ton here. Drop your thoughts below on Sanchez, on Weston Wilson, anything else you guys got on your mind. Make sure you're dropping that like, and we'll be back talking to you next time. Peace.